Hello everyone, this is Dr. Achal and I welcome you all again in our subject module titled as Services Marketing. So in our previous discussion we have dealt with one of the unique characteristics of the services, that is the characteristics of the perishability, and we have talked about that this unique characteristic of the services, that is the perishability. It speaks of the fact that here we as a service provider, we are just trying to ensure the presence of the customers and the consumers in order to provide the effective delivery process of the services. And in certain instances we have also said that there can be instances wherein the customers and the consumers, they are at an arm's length and they are not very much in direct touch with the service provider, the firm, but even then the firm is in a very good condition and a diligent way they are trying to deliver out their core offerings. So in today's discussion we will be dealing with the further more strategies, that how the service firm, they have to deploy out the strategies in a very diligent way, so that their own target audience is being satisfied, and not only the expectations and the aspirations of the target audience are being met, even if there is in a situation wherein the marketer has to just foresee that their benefits of the offerings should be provided to the society at large. So we will be discussing the strategies of the services, that is the strategy of dealing with the inventory aspect of the services. So moving on with the slide now, this slide says that it is all being related within a capacity constraint, that is we know that as we have discussed that the services, they are very much being perishable in nature, perishable in the sense that the simultaneous production and the consumption is going to happen whenever the service firm is trying to dispose of their offerings in the market area. And here the perishability is also being related in the sense that the service provider are trying to be in touch with their high-end customers. The capacity constraint, it speaks of the fact that to devices or to draft out the effective strategies for managing the demand, understanding the capacity constraint is very essential, and constraint or the limitations in terms of proper disposition of the services, they are being associated in 4 of the forms, and here the 4 capacity constraints are the time constraints, the labor constraint, the equipment constraint and the facilities constraint. Constraint, if we are discussing the word constraint, if we are using out the word constraint, it means that somewhere or the other we are discussing certain kind of loopholes, certain kind of lacunas or the shortcomings which are creating or which are there revolving in the environment for the purpose of for the purpose of getting rid of that particular constraint or the shortfalls or the pitfalls. We as a marketer, we have to just foresee that as the future is uncertain, we have to make certain provisions in order to just deal with these kind of constraints and the variables which are terming as a challenge for us. So we are saying, and we have dealt that this particular constraint is being falling under 4 of the categories, that is the category of the time constraint. There may be a situation in which the manpower who is being deployed in your organization, they are not very much being trained enough, and they are not putting out their best effort to create and deliver out the services. Similarly, there can be instances wherein the infrastructural facilities or the physical evidence, as we have already talked of the fact that in order to tangibilize out the intangible clues, we are taking the help of the certain supportive services, certain supportive aids are being used, and these supportive aids are in the form of the physical evidences. So there can be a situation in which the support facilities or the physical evidences in the form of the letterheads, logos, the brand, the people who are being deployed, the equipment, the procedural facilities, the advertisements, they are not in consonance or they are not in direct alignment with meeting out the objectives of the service firm. So that can also be a situation in which the equipment constraint can be gauged upon. And the 4th one is all being related within a facilities constraint. Facilities means the same thing, that is the sequential flow of the information, the sequential flow of the events or the phenomena that is being required for the purpose of effective delivery process of the core offerings. So moving on with the slide, in a more elaborate discussion, we will be just dealing with the further slides, and this particular slide says of the fact of the time constraint. Here we are saying that the management consultants, the medical practitioners, hairstylist, image consultants, they sell their time, and the time is a constraint for them, as they cannot create more than 24 hours in a day. Any time lost for them is their profit, any time lost for them is their profit or loss. Some examples of the services which have time constraints are given below. and the people who are being engaged or who are being talked of as having a very important factor, time playing in a very important factor in their profession. They are in the form of the practicing the job of chartered accountancy. They are the people who are being engaged in the legal advisory services, the management consultants are there, medical practitioners are there, tutorial services that is being offered by the academic fraternity. Now here we are seeing that the time constraint, we know that earlier also we have discussed the fact that there are certain kind of essential services which are falling into the category of the basic essential, and in order to give them adequate and easy accessibility, the service provider and the firm, they are making out their disposition of the core offerings 24/7 so as to provide greater ease and availability to the customers at large, not only to the target audience, because these are the offerings or these are the services which are falling in the category of the basic essentialities. So here we are seeing that the time constraint, it is being talked of in the sense that for each and every human being, for each and every living being, the time is then a limited precious resource to be taken care of, and definitely for those service providers who are being engaged in the offering of the pure services, here the time is playing a very pivotal role. Now we are seeing that the professionals or the disciplines who are, or the professional people who are being engaged in providing the services, like the consultancy firms are there, the people who are engaged in the medical field, they are the medical practitioners, the people who are being engaged in providing you in a grooming, I mean they are being engaged in the grooming center, they are being engaged in the wellness center. Their time is playing a very precious role, they are very much being worthy enough, it is very much worthy enough to take care of this particular time factor, because they are offering the services which are pure in nature, and they have to be in direct touch with the customers and the consumers. Then only the proper effective delivery process will happen. Like suppose if you as a patient, you have visited to a doctor and the medical practitioner is there. If you are not visiting to a particular hospital, or you are not in direct touch with the, I mean not physically present with the doctor will not be able to just diagnose and you out with regard to the specific disease that you are suffering from, and then that diagnosis altogether depends upon certain kind of information that is being provided by the diagnostic test, the pathology test that is being prescribed by the doctor. Similarly, if you are visiting to a consultant firm for taking out the legal advices, or you are visiting to a particular legal advisor for taking certain kind of legal advices, definitely you have to be in direct touch with them. Then only they will be giving you a greater appeal, and they will be giving you a good notion by understanding and comprehending your each and pros and cons that you are suffering from with. Now 24/7 hours, now we are seeing that these kind of services, they are falling in the category of the basic essential services. Similarly, we can take an example of the tutorials or the people who are engaged in the academic discipline. If the academic fraternity or the teachers, they are not, you as a student or you as a learner, you are not in direct touch with the teacher, you will not be able to just comprehend and assimilate out the things. But the thing is that here there are certain kind of instances in which you are sitting at the comfort of your zone, and you are trying to assimilate all the information that is being floated either through the online way or either through any kind of digital mode. That is also an effective way of learning, as we are doing it right now. Now we are seeing that the time constraint, it is also being said enough that if the time is being lost, if you as a service provider, you are not being able enough to meet out the demand that is being proposed by the customers and the consumers, you are not operating at the optimum capacity, and even if you are operating at the optimum capacity, you are not being able enough to meet out their demand that is being proposed by the customers. You will not be able to make a unique kind of identity in the competitive scenario, and you will be in a losing position. That is what is being talked of in this slide, that if the service firm and the organization, they are not being able enough to meet out the expectations and the demand that is being placed by the customers, then eventually with the passage of time, it may so happen that the provider and the firm is not in a good position, and that will be in a losing position to talk of. And gradually, if this happens for a longer period of time, persistently it happens for a longer period of time, that will lead towards defamation and tarnishing the image of your brand or the offering. So that should be avoided altogether. Now this is another constant. The slide says that this constant is being it's being related to the labor constant, and here we are seeing that in most of the service organization they suffer from the staffing problems. If an organization employs large number of people to meet out the demand, it is likely to face the problems with the staff during the slack period. In case the demand at a certain time increases more than the peak, it will not be possible for them at a certain time. It will not be possible for them at a certain time increases more than the peak. It will not be possible for them to cope up with the surplus demand. Examples are being quoted here, like accounting firms are there, the consultancy firms are there, the legal advisory firms are there. So this labor constant, we are seeing that in most of the organization, and definitely in each and every organization, we are being authorized to create certain kind of situation in which proper recruitment is being done. After recruitment, the selection and the training mechanism is being developed in your organization, keeping in view their objectives and the tasks that you want to fulfill upon. Here we are seeing that in most of the service organization, they are suffering from the staffing problem, and this staffing problem arises because of the fact that here as an organization we are not being able to figure out the recruitment and the selection of the right people at the right job. There can be instances, and especially in case of the service arena, we are witnessing that as this particular stream warrants to have an effective orientation on the part of the manpower, on the part of the employees who are working in the frontline staff. They have to be motivated enough, they have to be persuaded enough, and if all these psychological elements are lacking in their personality, definitely they will not be able to cater on to the needs and the meeting expectations of the target audience. So we are seeing that if an organization is employing a large number of people to meet out the demand, it may so happen that even if you have recruited or you have selected adequate number of manpower for your establishment to meet out the peak demands that is being proposed by the customers, but now that is good enough to have an adequate resources of the manpower so as to meet out the needs and expectations of the consumers and the customers. But there can be a situation conversely to it, there can be a situation wherein if the demand is being placed by the customers and the consumers, but you are having adequate resources to meet out that demand. Conversely to it, it may so happen that the demand is not sufficient in the market area in this competitive scenario, the demand is inadequate, and you as a service firm, you are having an adequate availability of the resources at your disposal, but its proper utilization is not being done because of the inadequate demand that is being placed by the customers. So this particular situation is definitely it is very deleterious for the health of the organization or for the health of the establishment, because you are not operating at the optimum capacity. As previously we have discussed the fact that there can be 4 situations to witness upon for an organization wherein they are being able to meet out the expectations and the aspirations of the customers by operating at the optimum capacity. They are fulfilling out the demands that is being placed by the customers. The very first situation wherein the firm is operating and they are trying to meet out the having a balanced approach of meeting out the demand and the supply factor. Similarly, if the demand is excess enough and the service firm is not being able enough to meet out that peak demand, this is the second situation. Conversely to it, if the demand is it is inadequate in the competitive scenario, and you as a supplier or you as a provider, you are having a sufficient availability of the resources with you at your disposal, but it is not operating at the optimum capacity. The third situation, this balanced approach should be there. Here we are saying that the labor constraint, it may so happen that you as an establishment or an organization, you having an adequate manpower availability in your establishment, but they are not being utilized, their services are not being utilized at the optimum way. So that is in a losing position for the establishment, because you are paying them monetary allowances, you are paying them perks and packages, but you as an organization, you are not being able enough to utilize out their services. So they are operating at the not at an optimum position, they are being underrated. And we are seeing that similarly there can be instances wherein it is not possible for the service provider to meet out the increased demand that is being placed by the customers during the peak hours, Earlier also we have taken in one of the example wherein we have seen that for the purpose of curtailing the practices that is being disposed by the customers in terms of placing out the demand and that particular rush influx of the demand is creating a peak demand hours for the service provider. This particular habit, this particular willingness to consume out the services during a certain specified time period should be curtailed by the service provider, and in order to restrict this particular habit or the practice being placed on the part of the customers and the consumers, the service firm and the provider, they are going in for offering certain kind of discounts and rebates to the target audience, to the customers, so that they may just be not willing enough to use and to consume out the services during the peak hours. Like we can take an example, like in a hotel, if the people are visiting out during the late evening for the purpose of dining out in a restaurant, then the restaurant owner may come out with a proper solution that during this huge demand or the peak demand being placed by the customers to dine out in the restaurant, in their restaurant during the late evening hours, that may create a very problematic situation in order to just have a balanced approach of meeting out the demand and the supply factor. So, in order to come out with a proper solution, what they are trying to do is that they are just trying to give certain kind of discount, a certain kind of rebates are being given to the customers, so that they may be just visiting out to that particular hotel or restaurant during the early evening hours to for the purpose of dining out or for the purpose of consuming certain kind of snacks. So so this particular kind of alternative solution will be helping both the parties, that is from the customer's point of view they will be trying to avail the discount and the rebates for moving for the consumption process of the food meals, and for the service organization, definitely that is a very good strategy to go in for removing this particular problem of the time constraint that is being placed by the customers to just that is being seen in the form of the peak demands. We are saying that this particular practice, that is a problem of the labor constraint, it is being witnessed on the part of the accounting firms. Similarly, there are consultancy firms are there, the legal advisory firms are also operating in this competitive scenario, and they are many times they are facing out the situation of having out the inadequate manpower, very much being ready enough, and they are very much being willing enough to provide out their services to the customers in their working in their establishment. Now, moving to the next slide, this slide is all being related with an equipment constraint, and this says that for certain service, the demand situation, equipment may be in a constraint. During festive seasons or the holidays, service marketers, they face these kind of dilemmas, that is the dilemma of the equipment constraint. For MTNL, equipment becomes a major constraint when every caller wants to use the time during the prime hours on holiday. Now, for example, we have taken an example of the services that is being provided by the telecom sector, the gyms, the courier services and the utility services. Now, the equipment constraint, we are saying that for certain services they demand the situation that is the demand is being placed by the certain kind of services, and this demand that is being placed by the customers for consuming, for purchasing and consuming these kind of services which are falling in the category of taking the help of certain equipments in order to just offer a unique kind of offering to the customers, then it may so happen that the proper creation and the disposition of the services is not taken place, or it is not getting placed before the consumers or before the customers, because we are lacking out certain kind of obstacle, or we are lacking out certain kind of equipments which are in the form of the infrastructural facilities, or which are in the form of the facilities that are aiding or that are falling in the category of the facilitating goods. So, the supplementary services, the supplementary goods and the facilitating goods are being required enough in order to just tangibilize out these intangible clues. Earlier also we have talked of the same fact that there can be certain situations in which the tangibility factor has to be used for the purpose of tangibilizing out the intangible clues being faced in the services arena. We have taken an example like during the festive season of the holidays, the service marketers, they are facing out this difficulty of procuring out the adequate equipment in order to provide an effective delivery process. Like the MTNL, in the case of the MTNL sector, the equipment is becoming a major constraint, and because here each and every caller, each and every customer, they are willing enough to use out the time during the prime hours on the holidays, because as the customers, they are each and every living being, each and every human being, they are facing out the problem of the time. So here it may so happen that if you are very much being they are finding it comfortable enough during the leisure time, they will be placing out their more demand and willing enough to interact during the festive season or during the holiday season with their near and dear ones, and those kind of rush can be seen by the telecom service provider in the case of the service, I mean in the case of the festive season, or during the period when the certain kind of festivals are going on, or during the period wherein certain situations are being created in which the people are very much being in need of getting in touch with their near and dear ones. And that is all being said that the example is being related in case of the telecom sector. The gyms are there, the courier services, the utility services. The courier service and the utility service can also be explained enough in the same way that we have witnessed an era, the past 5 years back, during the era of the pandemic, we have witnessed the same fact that here most of the customers and the consumers, they are moving for the purchase decision with the help of the virtual mode. They are making out the transaction with the help of the digital mode, rather than moving for the brick and mortar store. That was altogether, it was being prohibited during that particular point of time during the pandemic. So here we have witnessed that creating or purchasing or making out your transactions through the help of the digital mode or through the help of the e-platform, the e-commerce mode was very much being prominent enough during that particular COVID situation and the pandemic situation, wherein it has also created a great opportunity for the each and every marketer, the marketer who are trying to offer you the physical commodities, or the marketers who are being engaged in the service aspect. They are not in direct touch with the customers, but even then the customers are trying to find out an alternative solution to get their needs being fulfilled by placing out their transactions through the help of the digital mode. So that was a situation in which we have experienced that the peak demand was being witnessed on the part of the service firm, and here the customers are trying to meet out their expectations and aspirations very quickly, very efficiently, sitting at the comfort of their home in an effective and in a very safe way. Now, these are the facilities constraint, and here we are seeing that the hotels, it says that the hotels which is being associated and which is being measured in terms of the numbers of the room or in terms of the rooms they are holding on, the capacity that they are holding on in terms of the rooms. Same with the restaurants, they are being measured, their efficacy are being measured in terms of the numbers of the seat that they are possessing upon. The college, their facilities and their service delivery process, the efficacy of the service delivery process is being measured in terms of the number of the students that can be inducted, in terms of the numbers of the rooms that they are holding on in their premises. The classroom, their capacity is being measured in terms of the numbers of the desks that they are possessing. An aeroplane, the facilities and the services, they are being measured, their efficacy is being measured in the terms of the number of the seats that they are holding in their airline. Similarly, a theatre, their efficacy is being measured in terms of the numbers of chairs that is being accommodated in that particular setup, and they all are being constrained by the limited facilities. So, at any situation when the demand exceeds the capacity, these service providers, they get constrained, and here the examples are being written in the and it is being experienced in the form of the airlines industry. We are having trains, we are having restaurants, we are having movie halls, and the hospitals are also being recognized in the same sense. Now, these service providers and these are the service marketers who are working in the form of the providing you hotels, who are working in the capacity of the providing you restaurant facility, who are working in terms of giving you an adequate information. By the setting and establishment of the colleges, the classrooms should be well equipped in terms of the desk facility. There are hospitality sectors and there are transportation sector in which the airlines industries are operating. Similarly, there are other kind of recreational facilities that is being witnessed by us, and here for the purpose of effective delivery process, we as a service provider, we are just trying to make sure that effective creation and delivery is very much being important enough, because here the services, they are abstract in nature, they are perishable, they are variable and inconsistent. So the proper creation and the delivery is very much being needed enough. There can be a situation in which these facilities, that is the facility in terms of their proper accommodation of the customers, the proper accommodation in terms of the classroom, the proper accommodation of the customers in terms of when they are moving on in a particular airline industry, the proper accommodation of the people when they are visiting to a particular hotel or restaurant. So all these are the situation in which the service firm and the provider, they have to just come out with a proper solution, that the sufficient capacity should be there, the proper accommodation should be placed, and it should be there in the establishment for proper effective delivery process. Now we are taking an example wherein certain industries and the service firm, they are coming out with an approach of giving you a certain discount factor, certain rebates are being given. Like we can take an example of the airline industries, the discount factors are being given, and the rebates are being given to the frequent flyers. There are frequent flyer programs, those are commuting and using out the airline industries very frequently. There are certain kind of people who are traveling through the executive mode, they are being given with the discount factor in order to just promote and persuade them to use out their specific airlines very frequently, and to just go in for that particular aspect again and again. So this is in a situation in which the demand exceeding the capacity, and here the service provider has to just ensure that if the demand is more as compared to the services, or it is more as compared to the supply which the service firm is trying to engage in the market area, that should be optimized in a very balanced way, either by giving the proper discount or either by just channelizing out their effort in a certain kind of other way. Now that was all being related in today's discussion, that is we have dealt within a constraint being taken care of in the field of the equipment, being taken care of in the field of the labor, being talked of in the field of the time, labor, equipment and the facilities. That is all we have discussed in our today's discussion, and we have said that for removing out these constraints and the pitfalls, we as a service provider, we have to just either go in for adoption of such a strategy in which both the parties are at an ease. The customers should not be able enough to just have that particular feeling that their demands are not being placed, or their demands are not being met very effectively, or they are being dished with, or they are just being facing out in a situation in which the quality of the services being talked of, and they are being their efficacy is being checked in terms of the numbers of the constraint which is being seen in terms of the time factor, the equipment factor, facilities factor. They has to be just coped up, and the service firm, they have to just deploy a strategy for the purpose of removing all these kind of constraint, the pitfalls. They have to just come out with a solution in which the discount and the rebate facilities are being given out to the customers, so that the customers may not be facing out to the situation in which they are just trying to check out the efficiency and the efficacy of the services in terms of the number of facilities that they are possessing upon. So with this, I am ending up my session here only. In the next session, we will be dealing with another core aspect that is being associated within a service factor, and how to just deal out with this core unique feature of the perishability or the invariability in terms of the services. What are the strategies that the marketers have to just pursue to just deal out with this particular unique aspect, that we'll discuss in the next deliberation. So till then, it's all about in today's discussion. I hope that you people have understood the things. So thank you all for joining. Till then, stay safe and stay blessed. Thank you.